everybody. I'm Betsy Chasse. I'm really excited to be sitting here with one of my favorite people. I am really blessed to get to work with and meet so many amazing transformational leaders, healers, experts, scientists. And today we're going to meet somebody who has quite literally exploded my head. And I'm so excited to share with you. I am here today with Judy Wilkins-Smith. Judy is a highly regarded organizational, individual, and family patterns expert, systemic coach, trainer, facilitator, thought partner, leadership conference and motivational speaker, and founder of System Dynamics for Organizations and Individuals. So, what does all that mean? This is a great question. So, Judy calls her work systemic work and constellations. And if you've ever heard of family constellations, you might know a little bit about what she does. So Judy, welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be with you.
Thank you. So people might have a kind of understanding of like what family constellations is. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and why it's so different?
Okay. So it's different and it isn't different. The basics are all still there. The beautiful constellation, family constellations work, family of origin work, all still there. What happened for me was I kept noticing people saying, and then what? And then what? So breaking the cycle wasn't enough. It was, what do we do with that? And so the way that I approach it very much is sort of a three-part system. We do this, we pivot, and then what? That's what makes it a little bit different.
So what I like about that is when I did family constellations before, you're right. Like I got my constellations. I knew where everybody was. I understood my relationships to each of my family members, my ancestors, my great grandmother and all that. And that was the aha moment.
Right.
But it wasn't enough for me to go, what do I do with this now? How do I work with it?
Exactly. So it felt for me like one half of the equation was, I've got this, but the other half of the equation hadn't been satisfied. And I began to notice that in the words that people say, the actions they take, the feelings they have, these are all linked, of course, to your ancestral inheritance, your emotional DNA. But it's not just enough to know that you have it. It really, that's the first half. The second half is, oh my goodness, I have this unique piece that I can use to create a life that I really, really want to create, that is amazing and fulfilled and successful. And everything that I need, I have. You know, the sages were not wrong.
Well, can you give me an example of emotional DNA or some DNA that I have that your work pivots?
Okay, so there are a whole number of them. Let's take two. One is this is not you, but what I see often. I'm depressed. I've been depressed since I was young. When I hear that kind of thing, I know to go looking in the system, because if you've had it since you were young, it's where did you borrow that from? Where did that come from? How is it impacting you? But what is your purpose with that? If we see that there have been lines of depressed women, your purpose is actually to be the one who changes that DNA. For all of those who couldn't, I can. So this is kind of the springboard to our legacy, which is such fun with this work. It's when I tell people this is magical stuff, I'm really not kidding. You've got your own inner magic right there. And if you know what to look at, you also begin to know how to use it. So what's limiting in one generation is not necessarily in the next. And you're the one who gets to decide what something in a prior generation is going to look like through you. Maybe everybody needed to be depressed because way back then, this was a very depressing time. But now that you're sitting here and you're going, but I really want to enjoy life, your legacy is no longer to be joined to that. It is to say thank you, and now we can do this, which gives it a whole different flavor. But you needed that to become this.
And how do you have an event coming up about money DNA? How does my money DNA? What does that mean?
Well, that's one of my big favorites, because as you know, I love money because it is a relationship, not a commodity. It is a very beautiful flow. What it looks like is this. We have an event that happens in the family and somebody loses all their money. Now we start saying things or telling ourselves things like, well, money's not that important. Education is better. Shouldn't be greedy. Don't hold on to money. You get some, you lose some. These are all the pieces that we start to use to make sense of our world, which is fine maybe at the time, but it's limiting. And if that limiting pattern keeps escalating or echoing and escalating through the system, now you sit there with all of these sentences popping up going, can't have it, shouldn't have it, greedy, not nice. And you go, I don't do well with money. Well, do you love money? No. Well, can you tell me why? Yeah, no, we don't love money. We don't speak about money. It's greedy. If you've got that mindset, you can't possibly move to having and loving. So we lock ourselves into bandwidths. And at the money DNA one, we look at what is it? How does it live in you and your family system? What is it really asking and trying to become through you?
Interesting. Well, I'm excited for that. So I have a regular yoga practice. I meditate. I do all sorts of other fun things. How does this type of work, systemic work and constellations work, how does it fit in to all my other practices?
In other words, how's it part of your daily? Yeah. Okay. So for me, it's waking up immediately in the morning and going, who am I thankful for? Not just what, who am I thankful for? I'm thankful to my system. I have hands at my back. Even if it's looked like a really difficult system, there is wisdom and knowledge that comes all the way through that system to me. What can I hear today? When I start to have something happen, whose words am I speaking? Am I conscious of the fact that I may be speaking my mother's or grandmother's words? How do I want to change that? So it's who can I become in this world today? When something hits me, it is not there to limit you. It's not there to make you cave. It's actually saying, hey, here I am. Wake up. I'm here for you to look at so that you can twist me around, you can reframe me, and you can make something different with me. Let's play. So
How is that different from mindfulness?
Mindfulness doesn't take into account where it came from. It doesn't take into account your link to the family system. And here's what we know. When you don't look at your systems, you're blind to what lives there. And what you're blind to can hurt you. When you begin to understand it, now you become sighted and you can use it. Now, there is not a caveat, but there's an and to that. Some people don't know their systems. But what they do know, when they say that to me, what they do know is, what do you feel strongly about? Where do you find yourself really frustrated? Where is your heart's desire? Because that's where all of it sits. That's where the juice sits. What you're frustrated and limited by often links to your family of origin. It's a pattern that's outlived its use. Your heart's desire is the system saying, can you please move it forward? Can we just head in another direction? And your heart's desire is the chapter that only you can write. It belongs to you. And when you acknowledge what's there and you add what's possible, that makes it very different to mindfulness. Mindfulness is a part of it.
How does this relate to epigenetics?
So it relates beautifully, because what we know is you don't just inherit your physical DNA, you inherit your emotional DNA. What is emotional DNA, first of all? Emotional DNA are your patterns of thoughts, feelings, and actions that, by the way, didn't begin in your mouth or your body. They began in the mouths and ancestors of your families and echoed down to you. So that's your emotional DNA. Once you've got your emotional DNA in place, you start to look at, where is it that I'm so badly affected? And if you look back, you'll often see there is an event either in your own life or in the lives of your ancestors that began this language and began those feelings, survival feelings. And now again, you're swallowing them and using them as though they were yours.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to share an example that you gave to me that what was why my head would like that. We were talking about relationships and men. And most of the people that watch all my stuff know that I'm clearly terrible with men, apparently. And you asked me, and I said, I just can't seem to keep men, or men keep leaving. And you said something like, I don't remember the exact question, but it was something like, well, what is the story of men in your history? And my father passed away really young. My mother's father passed away really young. My grandmother's husband passed, like, it's just like, and my great
Boom, boom,
grandmother.
boom, right?
And we had this realization that every sort of father figure or grandfather figure in my existence disappeared or died young. So
Mm-hmm.
I have some unconscious belief that men are going to leave or they're going to die, which is, I
If
mean, I
I
hope
marry
that's not
you, life is not going to be good. You're going to, yes.
right. And it was when you did that with me, I was just like, oh my goodness. Because it was so obvious once I looked at it. And then
Exactly.
the trick became, okay, so now that we know that that's part of your system, what are we going to do to shift it? What are we going to do to change it? And I like that that was the awareness, the aha. And then I felt so much more empowered in how I could move into the future without that.
Right, right. And some of that was to be able to look at the missing men, which often we don't do. It's so bad. We exclude them. We don't talk about it. We hide them. It's too painful. And by not giving them their place, they keep repeating.
Mm-hmm.
And we really don't want that to repeat. So,
No.
yeah, it's changing that pattern. It's understanding what's happened and then going, so how do we do this differently?
So so one of the questions, oh, hold on a second, I can edit this out. How did you get interested in systemic work and constellations? Where did this come from for you?
Well, it found me in a number of ways. So I was busy writing a book, needed some information, connected with somebody who was doing this, who said, come and learn and I'll help you with a book. Never got help with a book, but learned this work. And then later on, somebody said to me, oh, well, of course you'll be able to do this. And I went, why? And they said, because it comes from South Africa, which is my country of origin. And it's actually based on the Zulu tribe and how they interact with their forefathers. They know that if something is wrong, they need to go look in the line and see what's off, because it's coming down for you, the present generation, to be able to bring awareness to it and now do it differently, change that pattern. And once you do that, the symptom has served its purpose.
Well, this is amazing. There's so much information on your website that I love. How can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me on LinkedIn. And yes, at my website, which is judywilkins-smith.com.
Well, Judy, thank you so much for this quick little brief interview. I hope people read the article below and visit your website. Thank you.
I would love to see them, and I look forward to working with each one of them.
Thank you.